First example, I'm going to show you how I use watercolor with the wet into wet process. I'm going to paint my whole area, my main image here of the stencil, with these warm magentas and pinks and purples. And then I'm going to try to have the stencil lay flat, and it's going to kind of create a suction barrier now that I've got all of the stencil saturated there. And if I introduce other colors into the areas that are wet, it's going to mix and create almost like a stained glass effect. And I can do this as much or as little as I want. And the new pigment that I introduce here is going to expand into the areas that I already put the first layer, the magenta and pinks. I'm almost going to oversaturate this. So this is going to be really, really wet. It's going to take a little bit of time to dry, but I'm going to set it aside to dry without moving the stencil at all. I'm going to let it dry with the stencil in place here. I'm just going to drop in the color the way I want it, get it really nice and bold toward the center of this flower, and then set this aside carefully without disturbing the stencil. This is not all the way dry because I really oversaturated this piece, but I can see that the stencil is starting to pull away a little bit. So I'm going to very carefully remove it. It might drip a little bit. Oh, that came out pretty well. Still watery in some of those parts, but I can then wait for this to dry completely and then go over it with ink, markers, another layer of watercolor, but it's a great start just using my stencil and watercolor to get an image. This technique takes a little practice, but once you start using your watercolors with stencils, you'll find that you're going to have a whole lot of different ways to use stencils in your both watercolor and acrylic projects. These make beautiful greeting cards or all kinds of little pieces that can be used to collage into another mixed media piece. So have fun, experiment, don't be afraid to practice with the amount of water and paint that you use with your stencils, because it'll all produce very unique results.